We are live. How about you, everybody? Welcome into this week's edition of the Auburn Live Call-In Show. I'm your host, Jeffrey Lee, Senior Recruiting Editor for Auburn Live on 3. If you're not a member of that site, you're absolutely missing out. Right now, we've got a special 1 week free. After that, it's 50% off. It's like a clearance sale, dude. With all the information we're putting out, it's an absolute steal. You might even get arrested for larceny. I don't even know what larceny is, but I think it goes with that somehow. Tonight, we're going to let the fans, as we always do on our call-in show, dictate our show, our topics. We want calls, we want comments, we want questions. Here to help me address each and every one of them, Mr. Keith Niebuhr, Mr. Cole Pinkston. How you doing, Mr. Keith?
I'm good, man. It's a big week, guys.
Oh
Yeah.
He's hog hunting.
I got some good-looking ones back there now.
Oh, bacon.
No doubt.
All eyes are on Arkansas this week, right?
Oh, pork loin.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and Mr. Cole coming from the banks of the Cahoosa?
Alabama.
The Alabama Coosa.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I like that. I like watching the sun go down. Folks, we were a couple of minutes late. We want to apologize for that. We're having some technical difficulties. We have them figured out now. Also, Jhead is going to be in and out tonight. He's going to join us when he can. He is on Daddy Patrol, as the nanny called in sick, I believe. Mm-hmm. At least that's what he's saying. So, nice weekend, fellas. Nice off weekend.
Sure. Yeah.
Got to watch some football.
Yep. Of course, everybody schedules their wedding on bye weeks.
Oh, Cole, did you have to go to the wedding?
I did. I had to go to a wedding. It was a good time, though. It was a good time.
All right. I did a little hunting. Got shut out. I went, I got three different sets on my dad's land and the adjacent land that she lets me hunt. I was at one spot, and of course the deer were at the other. The next morning I was at one spot, and of course the deer were at the other. So, exactly. I hope that's just not me. Keith, you catch any deer this weekend?
No, man, I just watched a lot of football, to be honest with you. Normally, I don't watch a ton of games generally. I watch the Auburn game and kind of dart in and out. But this weekend, I've watched a ton. I watched some NBA, watched some baseball. I'm just not one of those guys. A lot of golf. I'm not one of those guys that just watches a ton of sports anymore. As a kid,
sure,
I lived for it, but then you kind of grow out of that. So, but I kind of enjoyed that this weekend. And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of bad teams in college football this year. I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of guys, a lot of coaches making a lot of money, and some of the things they do, you wonder what you wonder if it's worth it. But no, it's fun, and this will be look. Now the eyes are back on Auburn, and this is a significant week because every week is at this point because there's so much uncertainty within the program right now. So take a couple days to relax, take a deep breath. If you're an Auburn fan, step back from the ledge, but then focus on this week, and it's an intriguing matchup. Again, Auburn's it's never dull with Auburn, guys.
And Auburn opened, if I read you correctly, Auburn opened as a 5-point dog to the Razorbacks.
Yeah, I think they were at first. It is from my last checks, it was at 3.5 Arkansas.
Oh,
so
everybody jumped on Auburn.
Yeah, and it changed pretty quick. So that's how that usually goes, but. I guess they're giving because when you look at the averages, Arkansas averages 32 points a game. Auburn averages just over 20, like 21.5 or 22. So, I think they're giving some credit to Auburn's home field advantage like they usually do. I don't think they're discrediting that even in a year like this. So that's why it's a little bit lower, I'd say.
3.5. Let me see. What's which I really don't know what I was expecting. That sounds about as close as anything else I was going to. Keith, did anything stand out to you yesterday from watching your college football?
Well, UCF, honestly, I'm not one of these Gus haters, but, I thought East Carolina would present them a challenge. They've got a pretty high-octane offense. But UCF just went up to Greenville, North Carolina, just got whipped pretty good yesterday. Now, obviously, there were a lot of turnovers. The SEC LSU is getting a little bit better every week since that disastrous start against Auburn. They've been pretty good. They're looking better. We kind of figured Ole Miss wasn't great, so that wasn't a huge.
A little fraudulent.
Ohio State seems to be clicking a little bit, but Iowa had a ton of turnovers and has a horrible offense. So I don't know. Ohio State's going to get a good test this next week, I think, at Penn State. They play Penn State, and I think it's at Penn State. So we're going to start seeing teams separate. And then TCU just hanging around unbeaten.
Yeah.
Even with backups at quarterback is interesting. And Texas with another meltdown. And then obviously I think you know what I'm getting to here. The guy out west. Bo Nix probably had the best game of his career, and they've designed an offense that's really tailored to his athleticism, and the quick passing game and his improvisational skills. And it's the perfect fit for him. And, Oregon's looking like a team that's going to play for the Pac-12 championship. And if they do and win that, I've said this for a few weeks, I think Bo will have a very good chance to be in New York City for the Heisman ceremony.
Hey, Keith, you're going to have to get in line. First, let's welcome Jhead. Hey, how about you, big dog?
Hey, when you said that guy out west, I thought you were going to talk about Jimbo Fisher, Keith.
Oh, Jhead's favorite head coach.
Oh, 100%.
Just love to see him fail, don't you, big dog?
Dude, it brings a smile to my face. And the second he starts making excuses, it is my absolute favorite thing in the world. These guys.
Dude, you do what you got to do, Jhead. In and out, big dog. Zach, you got somebody on the line?
Yeah, we got our first caller here.
All right. Hey, everybody, get on the call. 701-779-9585. Zach, send us to it.
Yep, 9296. Open up the show. Who we talking to? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is AUJHW from Birmingham. And I want to ask you guys a question about offensive football. I was watching that Tennessee-Alabama game. I noticed how Tennessee used that tempo and that spread to really make up for the fact that they don't have the athletes Alabama has. I mean, I think they lost some 30-some scholarship players. I know Harsin wants to run more of a pro-style set. That doesn't seem to be working very well. And we're going to obviously be doing something new next year. So I wanted you guys to talk about what would you like to see Auburn do offensively next year? What would give us the chance to compete quickly and give this new coach a chance? And I'll hang up and take y'all's questions. Thank you.
Appreciate you leading off the show, JHW. We're going to go to JHEAD because he looks like he's ready. He's got it.
Big time. If you're talking specifically against Georgia and Alabama, obviously, and Cole can talk about this as well as I can, there's kind of this fallacy that it's elite quarterback play that defeats them. It's not elite quarterback play. It's elite wide receiver play. They run a match pattern defense, specifically in the back end. And when you can put playmakers into the boundary and force them into one-on-ones, you can absolutely kill them. It's what Lane Kiffin has had success with against them. It's what Hugh Freeze absolutely dominated them with when he had Ole Miss winning 2 consecutive games back-to-back. And then think about Auburn's most success they've had offensively against Alabama or Georgia. It's that 2014 season when we had Duke Williams, Sammy Coates, and Ricardo Lewis. You couldn't double cover any one of those guys or you were going to get burnt. So some kind of a spread system where we utilize elite wide receiver play, something that has a more sophisticated route tree than we ran underneath Gus, but a power spread. I think that's what the personnel that we currently have on currently employ right now, and probably what we can recruit to best, if I'm being completely honest.
Cole, you want to jump in there?
Yeah. Just speak on what Tennessee does, man. It's all, and I won't get too deep into it, but it's alignment. They put their guys outside the numbers. Sometimes they stack them, and that ends up getting, man coverage matchups with your safety, and that's not what Alabama wants, okay? So they exploited that. I mean, my biggest thing with offense is when you have matchups that are out there like that, take advantage of them. Because I think there were times this year where guys like Landon King is a matchup problem, and you just don't go to it that much. To me, that is the biggest thing. However you have to, whatever style you choose, as long as you take advantage of the matchups. You can call it a pro style, you can call it a spread style, but the pros, they know how to take advantage of the quickest guy on the field against a mismatch in coverage. It's at least in the passing game. In the running game, I always wanted more variety. I don't like just a zone scheme. I like both. I like having counter, power, and mixing it all in there. So to me, I don't really care if you do it out of the gun, out under center, whatever. Just take advantage of those things.
My very elementary amateur opinion on this is I liked Gus's run game. I liked how he ran the football. I liked how he prioritized the football, running the football. I'm like you, Jhead. The route trees there, as far as I know, were elementary and amateur. Yeah. And so I thought I wanted to see more of the pro style, but the last 2 years makes me want to not so sure about that. Maybe a what did you say, a spread run with a little bit more complicated route trees, better wide receivers, better at least taking advantage, like Cole said, taking advantage of the opportunities there.
100%. And I think your best offenses right now in college football are all spread-based. And most of them are smash-mouth spread. I mean, you look at Ohio State and what they're doing. Tennessee runs things. Now, I probably don't want to go as fast as Tennessee does because I think they gas their defense and it's going to cost them down the back half of the season. But some kind of spread system where you can get guys in space and throw to the green, man. Like right now, we played too heavy in the box, and it's consolidating everything and making it really difficult for Tank, Jarquez, and probably who are our best players. But somebody, I mean, look, when the Browns developed their RPO spread scheme, I mean, it revolutionized the game. But something that takes advantage of the talent that we've currently got on campus, like Cole said, something that creates mismatch issues. I think we're probably best suited for a spread right now, but I'll be really interested to see what Keith has to say on this.
Keith doesn't have a ton to say.
Keith is hog hunting.
No, but it is funny when you think about just what the linguistics aspect of it. So when we were all kids, and well, Jeffrey's probably a lot older than the rest of us, but but when we were all kids. When you thought pro style, you thought NFL offense. And so my formative years, the NFL offenses were Dan Fouts and Dan Marino. And so you heard pro style and you thought, even though they didn't really together, you equated pro style with those guys, even if that wasn't the case.
Sure.
But so people thought when you were bringing a pro style offense to Auburn, it's amazing how many people I know that thought Harsin and company were going to be this 38 pass attempts a game offense. And that's not really what they are. But the reality is if you have the right players, you can pretty much run just about anything. But even Nick Saban, with all the talent they've had up front on the line of scrimmage and at the running back position the last 15 years, adapted and changed the way that they played the offensive game, realizing that maybe they couldn't do what they had been doing. So who still does that, Jhead? Georgia, maybe?
Yeah, Georgia's very much Wisconsin, Illinois, you
either got to have the dudes in the SEC like Georgia does to be able to pull that off, or in the Big Ten, where there's a lot of different unique offenses in that league, to be honest with you. And it's got to the point where a lot of teams throw the ball a lot, so maybe you could a running team can have some success because people aren't used to it, quite frankly. But no, I just think if you have the players, but what can Auburn do to get immediately better next year? It probably has less to do with the play calling to me and more about the talent acquisition. They've got to get better on the offensive line. There's no question about that. Just a little bit better. I mean, they've been in some of these games. I mean, they're 3-4, but easily could be. Now, granted, they should have lost to Missouri, but could be 4-3. And if you had just a little bit more offense, you might be 5-2. Who knows? But so better on the offensive line, and then if you're not great on the offensive line, you better be really good at quarterback. You just better have a guy that can create when you got nothing there. And I think we saw that the last few years. We saw a guy that could improvise, do things, and mask some of the other issues. So, I mean, it's really just a matter of just getting better. I mean, everybody wants to believe that my team has the players. My team has the players. Just got to throw to the tight end more. We just got to do this more, that more. And the reality of it often is, now sometimes that's the case, an offensive organization. I mean, but most of the time, if you're not scoring, it's really just a matter of you probably don't have the right dudes on the field, or you don't have the dudes, period. It's one of those two.
Hey, real quick, Zach, before we go to our next call, Keith, you said something about Bo being in New York, possibly. I've got to say this, man. When he was a freshman, I was with Rivals. We were doing rundowns. Jhead, you might have been listening to this.
I remember.
I told J.G. Tate, if Bo Nix was playing for a team like Georgia, he before he's done, he would be in New York for the Heisman ceremony. Hey, 1 out of 65 is not bad.
Well, and speaking of the Georgia game, and people keep pointing back to the Georgia game. I mean, they got slaughtered in that game. But, and I actually had a college coach call me and say, Bo actually wasn't terrible in that game. It was everybody else that he played with that just got demolished, basically. So that's going to be held against them. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But if they continue to win, I think they've got a few tough games coming up. And then who will they play in the championship game? It could be UCLA again. It could be USC. Is anybody else even still alive in
Utah.
that?
Utah,
because they have one conference loss. So if they win out, okay. If Utah wins out, so he's going to have a couple of tough games. But I think the next 3 games are like at Cal. Now there is a danger when you play games like that, as you guys know. How often has Auburn struggled with Vanderbilt through the years? You know, emotionally, are you there? You just came off a big win over UCLA, but it's set up for him to do really well down the stretch. 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's completing 70% of his passes. I think his quarterback rating is top 12 in the country, and he's running the ball. He's got like 8 touchdown runs, so he's doing a lot of things well.
Yeah, he's got big games down the stretch. I think USC, Washington, both are on the schedule, and then probably if they get that far, a Pac-12 championship game against Utah. So those will be some money games for him. And I don't think it's going to hurt Bo in the Heisman race more than it's going to hurt Georgia when you start looking at the playoff and the way they got annihilated by Georgia in that opening game. I think if you've got several 12-1 teams, Oregon's just going to get nixed just because of that. I mean, I feel like that's coming.
Zach, keep us going, big dog.
Can I point one thing out really quick?
Yeah.
Oregon does not play USC in the regular season.
Oh, they don't? Okay.
They finished with at Cal, at Colorado, which 2 really not good teams. Washington at home will be a test.
Yeah.
Utah at home will be a test. And then they close at Oregon State, which, quite frankly, plays Oregon well about every other year. So there are some dangerous games, but it looks like they'd play USC potentially in the Pac-12 championship game if USC wins out.
Got it. I had it flipped. Thanks, Keith.
And a note, that was also Dan Lanning's first ever game as a head coach, facing his former team that probably knew exactly what he wanted to probably run throughout that game.
And one of his coaching mentors.
Well, I actually thought that might give him a little bit of an advantage, a personnel advantage, that he would know Georgia's personnel better than Georgia would know his personnel. But the reality was his personnel was here and Georgia's personnel was here. So, yeah, didn't matter.
All right. 9947, you're live. Who we talking to? Where are you calling from?
T. Roy, Spanish Fort, Alabama.
T. Roy.
Spanish Fort.
That is a great area, man. I love it down there.
It is. It is.
Home to former Auburn signee Triple Threat.
Yeah, Trey.
And Reese Disputes.
Yes.
Yeah, Reese was from there. Yeah.
What you got, T. Roy?
Jhead, October 23rd, my man. As of right now, today, he's got his Auburn's coach next year. You can change your mind next week.
Okay, that's fair, T. Roy.
Now,
So,
who you got?
I'll let somebody else go first, and then I'll come back. In 2 seconds, I'm going to give him a 3-year-old.
go do Daddy Patrol. Yeah. All right, T. Roy. T. Roy wants to know, we can change it next week. Who's your coach next year at Auburn University? Is anybody ready to say something?
I mean, if we're able to change it in a week, then I could say something. I don't have great confidence in it. I just have sort of a feeling that I guess I'll go first. that it could be Hugh Freeze. That's just kind of my gut feeling.
I got one for you.
Brian Harsin.
Oh.
He said I could change it next week.
I was not expecting that.
Keith?
Oh, boy, let's see here. I think maybe Freeze as well. I don't know. I want to know why Jeff thinks Brian Harsin, though. That's
yeah.
No. It's only because he's still the coach here, and I can change it next week. And if next week, right now, if somebody gun to head, I'm saying Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
Gun to head, I'm saying Hugh Freeze.
I'm going to say 2 names here. Well, yeah, I'm going to say 2 names here right now, and it's really contingent on. I mean, I think how this all shakes out is going to be really dependent upon who our AD is and who they can kind of draw into the search. I mean, I think this is going to change. If and when we make a change, you're going to have more names in the hat than what people are anticipating at this point, and some of this booster chatter that you've heard that's been overwhelming to a degree. some of that will be squelched when some new candidates arise or come about. But right now, I would say Hugh Freeze and Matt Rule. Those are the two names I would say watch that I would anticipate probably a run to be made at.
Damn it.
And I mentioned Matt Rule about 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, and there was just nothing there. And then he came out and said that, other people came out and said that, he's not really looking to coach for a year. And that's a guy that would probably, and I think he would look. I don't think there's just one guy that would be great. I think there's so many unknown. There's so many X factors. There's a lot of people that could do great. Jeff Grimes may be great. Lane Kiffin. There's you're right. There could be unknown guys, or there will be candidates. Do you give Joe Witt Jr. an interview? Do you there's potentially other guys in the NFL as well. If Eric Bieniemy wants an interview, do you give him? I mean, you just don't know. But Matt Rule's a guy I think would be an interesting hire, concerning to Auburn rivals. I think that's a guy that knows how to build a program.
Is that who you said your second one, Jhead?
Yeah. Matt Rule. Yeah, Matt Rule. And I will tell you why. Timing lines up. Matt Rule's currently unemployed. He can start tomorrow if you make a change. I think that when you're looking at interested parties, timing will be a factor to a degree. I mean, I think they want to get it right, but if you can get it right with a guy that can start, very early in December, that will play a factor as far as the decision is concerned. And Keith, I heard the same person. I know who you're talking about nationally speaking. They were saying Matt Rule didn't want to coach. Well, he may not right now, but a lot of coaches, they go home for a couple of weeks, they recharge the batteries, and all of a sudden that competitor in them starts to come out. And then they also start to feel for those assistant coaches that are looking for jobs. Okay, I can go help these guys. I can take a premier job in college right now and get these guys employed. There's that human element that plays a factor in these decisions. So I'm watching Matt Rule. That's a name of interest to me and something I'm going to be paying attention to.
I think both of those guys make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I think especially Hugh with money.
Yeah,
I think he would crawl to Auburn on broken glass, buck naked, with his butt cheek spread.
Yes,
no doubt. Auburn's going to need that. They're going to be paid. I don't care who it is, as long as they throw him the damn ball.
I think Hugh will throw him the ball.
Hell yeah. T-Roy, good stuff, big dog. We appreciate your call. We keep all those folks down in Spanish Fort safe. Hey, Zach, do we have JP? JP, call, man. I don't mind you. I like your questions too, but all right, here we go. Ruben Bain question. I was going to drop Ruben Bain's prediction from 75 on the hot board, but I did keep it, and I'll tell you why. Rock, Christian Robinson, both went to their game Friday night. Stanquan Clark was who Christian Robinson was there to see, and from talking to sources, Stanquan Clark did whatever he needed to do.
Okay.
Auburn liked what they saw from him. I put him on the hot board. I think I've got him fairly low for right now. I want to see what happens, but I also think Ruben. Hey, I think he had 3 or 4 sacks in that game. Yeah. Freaking beast. Auburn's turning the heat up on him even more. I mean, it's and I tell you, and I had some communication with Ruben before I did that hot board, and just kind of feeling him out, man. Just asking him, about Rock and them being there, and dude, I could be completely wrong, but man, he has been so. And I also read that FSU update today, and I thought that was kind of general stuff. Nothing stood out about that interview with his visit to Florida State. He said all the right things. I didn't hear the enthusiasm and the excitement that I heard from him in Auburn, and I know that he has given indication to Auburn's coaches that man, he may be telling this to everybody, but he has indicated that he plans to be at Auburn next year. Now I know a lot will determine, will Rock Bellantoni be here? I think Drew Fabianich is a big deal. Drew Fabianich and Rock Bellantoni, if one of those two guys are here, and it's really tough to say right now if they will be. But if one of those two guys are here, and I think Ruben loves it, man. I really do. So Keith and I both Neither one of us have put in a prediction for Ruben Bain, and that's why. There's still a lot of unknowns here. It's very difficult for me to put in a prediction for a guy like that who's not going to announce until December, who's going to take more visits. A lot's going to happen between now and when he decides. That's why I say, as of today, I feel really good about Auburn's chances. And I'm going to take one from T-Roy here. Ask me next week.
There you go.
Ask me next week.
Now, Jeff, do we know if Ruben has gotten a tattoo of Auburn on his arm yet?
No, because he's still at 75%.
He's a dynamic player. And we should point out, I talked to some people with regards to his recruitment, and they thought that Miami and Alabama may still be, at least other schools seem to think those are still maybe the two to watch. But again, those schools don't know what he's telling Auburn. Auburn doesn't know what he's telling other people. I mean, and then also, there is that situation with Miami where the former Miami Central coach, and we keep bringing this up. And
he cannot sign with Miami as of today. He can't.
His former coach, Roland Smith, great guy, is on the Miami staff. And the rule is if you go to a college as an off-the-field guy, players in your high school can't follow you.
For 2 years, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think I know all that. And, right now, we're trying to figure out, and Auburn's trying to figure out, and everybody else recruiting the kid. FSU's trying to figure out. And yet, I read a story that I was quoted in last week at On3, just, what about Auburn's chances? And our Kane Sport guys, which is our Miami site, seem to think that he's going to Miami. So apparently, Miami's still recruiting him hard. They got to know something the rest of the world doesn't know.
Right.
That's what we don't. Are they going to change the rule? There's been some talk about that.
They got 10 weeks to do it?
Yeah, exactly. Unless he signs. Well, no, he's an early enrollee.
Yeah, they got 8 weeks to change this rule.
Theoretically,
the rule
you don't have to sign. You can just show up in January.
The rule implemented it was exactly for this purpose.
Yeah.
This rule was put into place to keep colleges like Miami from hiring a high school coach that has a 4-star stud guy. Because I think it was with Gus here. Did he hire Ben Blackman from?
It was Shelton Felton he was going to hire.
Oh, yeah.
It was going to conflict with Big Cat Bryant's signature, so they couldn't bring him on as an analyst. Now, they did end up bringing in the other Blackman, not Ben. Brian, who's down at UCF now with Gus. And we couldn't recruit Opelika for 2 years.
Now, the other thing.
Ben Blackman, formerly of Spanish Fort.
Yes, sir.
The other interesting thing is that Stanquan Clark of Miami Central, Ruben Bain's teammate, the linebacker, committed to Louis that Jeffrey mentioned just a minute ago. Miami supposedly is pressing for him too. So that's two guys at the same school.
So, like you said, Keith, they must know something that everybody else doesn't. Because my sources at Auburn were going, "You're right."
I can't remember. Did they transfer in? Is there something all of us are missing?
Yeah.
No. Did Stan Kwan transfer in from another school? I'm going to have to look into that because
were they there when Roland was there?
Yeah, that's the thing. Now I do know that that I believe that what's his name, Ruben Bain. Yeah, what's his name? Good old what's his name? I believe he doesn't actually go to school at Miami Central. He actually takes classes down the street, and wherever he goes doesn't have a football program, and so he's able to go to that school. Kind of like Clay Whedon does not attend Tampa Carrollwood Day School in Tampa.
He's homeschooled.
It's like a homeschool. Yeah, homeschool people.
I don't know. There's something. Whatever it is, as far as we all know, Auburn doesn't.
There's a loophole.
Miami, yeah, So I don't know, but it's interesting. But also now we have a new monkey in the a new factor, a new something. I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
New monkey in the wrench.
Miami's not any good this year. And so while Auburn's struggling, you're thinking, okay, well, and they have a coaching change. And we've been told that even if Auburn does have a coaching change, that he's pretty attracted to Auburn overall, and also the NIL is going to be a strong deal for him. But Miami, what's going on in Miami now? All of a sudden, everybody's jumping off the bus there. So does that help Auburn? I don't know, man. It's going to be bad recruitment. Let's put it that way.
Kelsey Gardner jumping in here with another Hughes with a. Which would you guys want? Which one would you guys want, Rule or Freeze? I don't know enough about Matt Rule. I really don't know enough about Hugh Freeze except what I've seen. I just did a little quick check on Matt Rule. I know he won at Baylor. He went to he was at Temple before Baylor, if I'm not mistaken. Cole, do you know much about these guys? I mean, I know about Hugh Freeze, obviously.
Yeah, I was about to say I don't know a whole lot about Matt Rule. I just have been told by people who would know, hey, he would be a fantastic recruiter at Auburn. I've been told that a ton of times. Definitely from people who would have an idea. So, but of the two, I do know a lot about Hugh Freeze, and obviously he's had some issues or whatever. But I mean, Lane Kiffin had issues too. He's at Ole Miss. A lot of people have issues and get a second chance. I don't see why he can't.
The Burton kid from Alabama.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Little jab there.
What I do know about Hugh Freeze is that he's a winner, man. He goes and he wins. He's doing it at Liberty right now, even with like a freshman QB. And I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot.
Four
to like
string.
Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
Oh, fourth. I didn't even know that. I watched them play the other day. Thought they were firing on all cylinders. I mean,
I will say this, Jhead. Go ahead, Cole. I'm sorry.
Every time I watch them, I'm just impressed. All of his teams. So.
I have been anti-freeze, and I'm anti-freeze.
Yeah.
I have been. I have been. I'm starting to come around. Just a little bit. I haven't done that U-turn yet, but I'm checking over my shoulder just to make sure it's clear to turn.
No, I hear you on that.
He's a damn good coach, isn't he?
Yeah.
Listen, my thing was Gus 2.0.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think that's what it is.
I think he's a better in-game decision maker, personally.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know who would be better. If we're talking, I'll talk just about Hugh Freeze. First and foremost, where does Auburn need to get better at? You'd say offensive line, and to me that would be number two. Quarterback.
So
Hugh Freeze has had developed, generally given credit for developing Malik Willis into an NFL caliber quarterback, and then also Chad Kelly was a very successful college player for him at Ole Miss, and there was one other guy too, wasn't there?
Bo Wallace,
who he's had a good amount of success at the quarterback position, and that's where when you look at Auburn historically, it's funny because Auburn's got two Heisman winners that were quarterbacks, but overall, it's certainly not a quarterback producing program. It hadn't been, right? Not a lot of guys in the NFL. So
you got a backup in Jarrett Stidham. I think that's it, is it not?
Yeah,
he got in for 2 snaps today.
So and then so who wants to play with good quarterbacks? Well, good offensive linemen,
good wide receivers,
good receivers, good tight ends. So to me, everything starts at the quarterback position, and I'd feel like Auburn would be in pretty good hands with a guy like Hugh Freeze.
I agree.
Hey, Cole, maybe you could indulge us a little bit more on the Matt Rule recruiting, because Decatur Tiger 97 wants to know, could he recruit the South?
I can only tell you, what I've heard from those who are in the coaching world who have maybe, been around Rule or gotten to know him, or one of the people that I talked to actually does know him and thinks that his operation of recruiting is just so it's like a well-oiled machine, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the criticism about the current staff has been, some of the ways that they do things or whatever. And they just think that would be a welcomed addition to Auburn, and thinks he could change the landscape of that. And I think, obviously, if they think that, they would think that, this region of the country he'd be okay in.
And I'll tell you, I'll give you 2 things here, Cole. I've researched Rule out the yang, man. I was actually following him when he was still at Temple. But what he did at Baylor was extremely unique. Number one, he killed it in the support staff when he moved down there. He hired 3 big-time Texas high school state football coaches and put them on. And basically, they were his outreach. He let them more or less navigate the waters for him and say, hey, this is where you need to go to find players. And he cultivated relationships with those high school coaches and started a feeder system.
Yeah.
The other thing that he did was he started recruiting to traits at an extremely high and efficient level. They weren't necessarily worried about whether or not you were a great football player right away. But if you ran 4.3, by God, he was on you and you were getting an offer. And he was going to build you into a good football player. Now, some of that recruiting might drive Auburn fans nuts because he's not a star chaser by any means. When he sees a guy he likes, he offers and he takes him, and he snaps up a class real quick. And it's going to be at Baylor. Now, maybe, look, Baylor's Baylor. They're probably a top 30 program in the country. Auburn's a top 15 type program if it's run correctly. Hell, maybe even a top 10. So the type of prospect that you're going to attract is going to be higher. You got a lot of talent in this area, specifically there in the Atlanta area, that he'll be able to tap into. I think Rule could be an efficient recruiter. I don't know that he's ever going to be a Mario Cristobal type that's going to have you routinely in the top 5. But I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be top 15 each and every year, and you're not going to worry about the guys he's taking because the best players that Dave Aranda had, they were all Rule guys, okay? They were guys – every guy that's been drafted, and I think Baylor just set the record for their own university for having players drafted in the past 4 or 5 years, and those were all guys that Rule brought in and ID'd, some of them 2- and 3-star guys, some Roger McCreary types.
Did Rule have RG3? Was he on that team?
No, that was Browse.
Browse. That's right.
Interesting thing about him, he's a program builder. I think Temple, they won 2 games in year 1, and by year 3 had 10 wins. At Baylor, they won 1 game in year 1. Obviously, nobody at Auburn's going to accept 1 win, but there's rebuild projects. Baylor had that mass exodus, as everybody will recall, because Auburn was quite frankly.
Everybody, okay?
Auburn was what's up, bud? Auburn was one of the beneficiaries of the
Bye-bye.
Garrett Stidham and
You look like your daddy.
Yeah.
With red hair, man.
So, year 3 at Baylor, it was a 10-win improvement from year 1. So, organizational freak, a guy that has a background coaching on both sides of the ball. At Temple was once the QB coach, and early in his career was a defensive coach. So now he's got that NFL experience. I know what it takes to be in the NFL because I wasn't just a coordinator; I was a head coach in the NFL, and I know a guy in Tuscaloosa had been able to sell that as well.
And by the way, didn't Nick Saban not do well in the NFL?
No, he did okay.
He did okay.
He did. His first year he was 9-7. His next year he was 6-10.
So did he get fired from the Dolphins?
Nah, he left because he didn't like. I mean, when the Dolphins brass didn't sign off on Drew Brees, and then he went to New Orleans and started lighting it up, and he got stuck with, God, who was the big kid out of UCF? Keith, massive quarterback that played for the Vikings for years. Yeah,
Culpepper.
Getting Culpepper instead, and he was a complete dud. And that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. But,
Dante. Jordan Stallions. Here's Jordan Stallions. I think I saw him on a movie. Will Auburn offer Cam Shanks from Prattville? Cam Shanks, for those that don't know, like me 3 or 4 minutes ago, is a 5'9" wide receiver committed to Liberty. He's from Prattville. So, Jordan, just by looking at his height, I would say no. Because Auburn's passed on everybody under 6 feet to this point that I'm aware of. They need taller outside guys. I don't think they need any more 5'9" slot guys. Now, if Hugh Freeze gets the job, who knows? But as of now, I do not think Auburn will offer Cam Shanks from Prattville. Keith, I can't imagine them.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, obviously the kids. I mean, if you're going to a Division I school, you're going to be pretty damn good, right? But if there's an expectation at Auburn that you're maybe 3 or 4 diamonds in the rough at the most per class, but you've already got Adam Hopkins and DeQuavius Sorey committed. Again, granted, we don't know what's going to happen with those guys. By the way, I should point out that Adam Hopkins is going to be an Under Armour All-American,
And he's 5'11", right?
I mean, size-wise, but it's not just size-wise. I'm sure he's really good, but is he going to be, when Hugh switches schools, you don't just take 8 commitments from, if that's happened, you would just take eight of your commitments from Liberty to Auburn. They're recruiting guys at Liberty that fit their conference, that fit that level. You know what I mean? And so I think
Hugh sees that kid and goes, he can help us win at Liberty.
Yeah.
Will he help us win at Auburn?
Yeah, and maybe he would.
Who knows?
There might be 1 or 2 guys because, and I know Florida's not very good this year, but Napier got a couple transfers from UF, and one of them is going to be probably a first-team All-American.
From Louisiana.
Yes. From, what did I say, Louisiana Tech?
No, you said UF.
Well, at UF now, but he brought
Right.
some guys from Louisiana. And one of them was the offensive lineman Auburn was recruiting, that Osiris Torrance, I think's his name.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, you wouldn't think a guy at Louisiana Lafayette would be a first-team All-American candidate at an SEC school. So potentially you could have somebody like that. Again, we don't even know if he's going to be – we don't know whether Brian Harson's getting fired. We don't know whether he's going to be the replacement. But, who knows?
I would say no. I don't expect Auburn to offer him. If there's any shot of him ever ending up at Auburn, it would be if Hugh Freeze were the head coach and he thought he could help him win. Valiant Hermes, I guess that's how you pronounce it. What % chance would you say that Harsin is back in 2023? Not very high. I think, if you got Brian Harsin off the record, he would probably tell you the same. I don't think any – I can't find one person to tell me that they expect him back in 2023. Let's put it that way. And again, off the record, he'd probably tell me the same thing. But so I would think it's very, very low, especially with a new AD coming in, hopefully soon, just in that thing, hopefully the next week or two. So we all think that's very low, very low.
Like 20% is probably what I'd give it.
And that's
generous.
That it probably is being generous. And I mean, it would take. I don't know what it would take to even. I don't know that he could win out at this point, and I just don't know, man. I just don't think that's a realistic possibility. Keith, you don't. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking, what would in 1995? What would be the odds of Jhead walking into the supper club and leaving with 3 cheerleaders? I mean, higher than that, obviously, because that'd be 0. But no, I'm giving Jhead a hard time. But no, yeah, I mean. We haven't heard any, but now there's not people definitively. There are people who definitively don't say, "Hey, he's definitely gone," but nobody's saying, "I think he'll be back."
Right, perfectly put, Keith. Perfectly put. Nobody has told me straight up he's gone. Nobody has told me that. I just can't find anybody that expects him to be back.
Yeah.
And Keith, I think we talked about this on Inside the 20 last week, but man, they're coaching to the whistle, right?
They are. There's always a chance. Maybe you win the next 3 games, which, by the way, they're all winnable.
Sure.
And Ashford takes this enormous leap, and the offensive line looks better, and who knows? I mean, right? I mean, it seems like there'd have to be some things that haven't been happening would have to happen, and then maybe you'd get a groundswell of support, or a small level of support that would then grow to keep them. Hey, you know what? Look at the fight in this team. They're finishing strong. What's the harm in one more? There's always that chance, I guess. But so far, I haven't heard anybody.
Let's put it this way: his biggest fan, his biggest supporter, his biggest ally is no longer at Auburn.
That's correct.
Alan Green is gone.
And even though that it could be possible that he wins those games, and there's a chance. It's probably not a good chance. But to me, it just feels a little bit more political. Does that make sense? Sure. I really don't think it matters. I think I stay at 20% even if he wins them.
Yeah, I agree, Cole. I don't think there's and this is just me. I just don't see there's a way. There's not even a bucket list here of him checking all the boxes and somehow staying. Jay Bradford 2, Keith, wants to know about Blackstock. You put in a prediction for him?
Yeah, that's the top 5 junior college player in the country, offensive tackle at Coffeyville Community College. Will Friend, the offensive line coach, and Brian Harsin, the head coach, went and watched him play on Saturday. Apparently, he was pretty dominant out there. He was excited to have them there. I think they were there before the game and then stayed a half, I believe, something like that, because they had to get to another game. He was happy to have him there. He's after the game also spoke to Drew Fabianich, the GM. Now, while Harsin's there, he can't talk to the guy. Obviously, they were playing a game, but even if he stayed to the end of the game, there's certain rules. But and sometimes, the funny thing is, guys, sometimes the kids don't know that. And they see a coach there, and then they're offended that the coach didn't talk to them after the game,
Come over.
Exactly. So what we understand is Penn State may get an official. Oregon may get an official. His mom is going to attend one of the next 2 games at Auburn, I think, on her own, because he can't visit Auburn until his season is over. I mean, we just know Auburn feels really good about it. There's people in his corner that want him at Auburn.
A lot of things lining up right for Auburn.
In Auburn, the ball's really in Auburn's court. They gotta finish this off. And how do they do that? That only he knows that. But he's looking hard at other schools, but it's all hitting him at once. All these schools are coming out of the blue. So what would logic would tell you that with that happening, maybe you fall back to the school you grew up loving. You know what I mean?
He wasn't recruited out of high school, dude. He is eating this recruitment up. He is loving it. He's enjoying it. He's going to take those visits, and then he's ultimately going to sign with Auburn. That's how I see it working out.
I think so.
That's my guess. Yeah. Pocket watch. Man, Luke Fickell, dude. I don't know much about Luke Fickell. I know he coaches at Cincinnati, and they're pretty good.
Something tells me if they were worried about the fit with Harsin, that maybe Fickell's not the first choice for that reason.
I would like some SEC bloodline.
It seems like it almost needs to be that way, just for politics' sake, just so everybody would get out of the way and say, all right, he fits. Let's leave that alone. You know what I mean?
Great football coach, pocket watch. Obviously, he's always got Cincinnati in the hunt. But Auburn, I wouldn't be a proponent of him.
The only thing I would say is that he spent so many years at Ohio State. Let me look at his bio here. 2002 to 2016 at Ohio State. So what do we know about Ohio State? One, they're good just about every year. They're the northern power, obviously. And two, though, where do they recruit? Well, they recruit a lot of the Rust Belt, obviously, but there's only so many players in Michigan and only so many players in Ohio. Fewer in Michigan than in Ohio. Ohio's a pretty good football state. They go to the East. They'll go to New Jersey to get guys. They'll go all over the country, but they definitely recruit in the South, and they definitely recruit in Florida. I don't know his history of where his regions were as a recruiter, but I'd be damn sure willing to bet he's recruited in the South a lot, okay? And so who does that remind you of? An Urban Meyer, a guy with knowledge of the South? A guy. Well, I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's the next Urban Meyer. I'm not saying he's the next Nick Saban. But those guys didn't have strong ties to the South, but they understood the dynamics in play in the South. So you better have one or the other, right?
Yeah.
You're going to thrive. You better be. You can't be just somebody that doesn't understand how it works down here. One thing we know about Ohio State is they know how to recruit. Okay, they come down here and they win battles against the big boys. Not all of them, not maybe as many as Alabama and Georgia are winning, but they win a lot of them, and they also recruit Texas really well. So again, I wouldn't be scared off by the fact that he hasn't coached or worked in the SEC. I'm sure he understands when you're at a program of that level what it takes to win in the SEC. Ohio State, obviously, is what I mean.
Hey, Zach, was there a question from Blake Pipkin? We're going to come – hey, Byron, we're going to hit you up real quick. I was going to answer it, and then he took it off, and I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, he just made a comment about if Harsin wins 4 of the last 5 games, there's no way you can fire him.
Okay. If he wins 4 of the last 5, there's no way you can fire him?
You just fired the last guy for going 8-5 every year.
Yeah.
So Byron, according to this report, man, because the football only facility it's supposed to be completed in September. What's this? October? Is it completed yet? You might know. Jhead would know this, of course. But they're supposed to move in after the season.
I think Justin had something not too long ago that it was really close to completion. I don't know if it's completely finished, but it's enough to where they can move in, I think.
Yeah. And if something's scheduled to be finished in September, it's always about 3 or 4, maybe 5 months late.
Yeah.
The damn construction workers.
Oh,
contractor. Yeah. But will it help in recruiting? Damn, Keith, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to help recruiting. I think a lot of these things do. It's the funny thing is when they started building it, or when the plans came to fruition, that was the number one thing people were talking about. Obviously, development, getting guys NFL winning, relationships with the coaches. But this new facility was going to catch Auburn, let Auburn catch everybody else, and maybe even move ahead of them. Well, then something else came along that's even bigger than these football facilities, and that's NIL. So, again, not to diminish it, but yeah, it doesn't mean as much. But that doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything. It still means a lot. They want to have a good home base players. They want to have all the cool things. They want to be able to be developed in a building where they can also chill out and relax. And it's got all the bells and whistles. And again, I have a friend that worked at Oregon, and and they had toured this building, I guess, over the summer, Auburn's new facility, and they said, no comparison. No comparison. Auburn's is far better than the Great Oregon facility, which I
wow.
Now, the Oregon facility, it's beautiful, but it's not going to have everything that this one would have. But obviously, they're going to redo theirs too. It's a never-ending arms race. But yes, it's important. It's important. But it's just one piece of the puzzle. Probably one of the 4 or 5 biggest pieces, though.
And I will say this. Moving into the 2023 season, the spring, Auburn's going to have the 2 most important things in recruiting in the NIL collective. The On to Victory is fired up right now, reportedly doing extremely well. And we just talked to Brett Whiteside last week. If you haven't checked out that interview, I strongly urge you to. Doing a fantastic job at On to Victory. NIL definitely making an impact now with Auburn, and then have that new football-only facility being ready. It will Auburn won't have any excuses to not recruit at an elite level.
Great school, great atmosphere, plays in the biggest games, plays in the best conference, brand new football-only facility that they say may be one of the 3 or 4 best in the country. At least that's what people at Auburn say. NIL competitive with anyone in the country. No excuses, right?
No excuses.
Yep.
Elite level. Elite.
Yep.
Matt Reeves wants to know about Greg Sankey signing off on Hugh Freeze, if that is who Auburn wants to. Justin has reported that there may be a hiccup there. He obviously knows more than I do. Probably Jhead does as well. But all I'm telling you is what Justin has reported, which is, Cole, correct me if I'm wrong, that the new AD would have to work hand in hand with Greg Sankey to sign off on Hugh Freeze coming back to Auburn if that opportunity ever presents itself. That's at least how I understand it, Matt.
There's some thoughts out there that he might not sign off on it, and that was the thought the first time around, and maybe why Auburn didn't end up with Hugh the first time, because he was a guy of interest. But, you know, that's kind of why I said what I said earlier when I was talking about Hugh Freeze. You know, I mean, when does he get a chance? Does he get a chance ever? I mean, you know, is there a time limit? I don't really understand it. That's all I'm saying.
What do they call it? So much times you can't get charged with a crime after so long.
Statute of limitation. Don't act like you don't know those laws.
I can't be around any high schools. 9 feet of any. Blake wants to know. He had a comment about recruiting. All right, Blake, give us a comment. I think we are still very much in it for Ryan Williams. Sure, he's a 2025 kid from Saraland, stud wide receiver from what I'm told. He's committed to Alabama. Got some Auburn lineage there. It's a long ways off, but just keep that in mind going forward. Kid will be a 5-star. If he's not already, he will be. From everything I've heard, Blake, he is an elite blue chip wide receiver. I think he's got a teammate there too as well. There at Saraland, Brian Harston went last week. It was one of the 3 schools he made a stop at on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, on his little in-state tour. On Tuesday, Brian Harston made a stop at Saraland there, and I'm sure Ryan Williams had a big reason. Was a big reason for that. So yeah, I would not expect Auburn to give up on on him. Stan from Cleveland. We haven't mentioned Kiffin. We haven't mentioned Deion Sanders. You know, last week somebody asked who would my choice be, and I said Lane Kiffin. I tell you what, when you left a bad taste in my mouth, what LSU did to Ole Miss on Saturday. I mean, think about it, Cole. Jumped out to a 17-3 lead and then ended up losing 45 to whatever. Sound familiar?
Well, I turned it off because I was on the way to a wedding. I was like, I'm going to have it on my phone at the wedding, but it looked like it was out of hand, so I was like, I'll check on it later. LSU came back, which was in the back of my mind because I've seen Ole Miss play defense, and they have a good pass rush, but that's really it. So
did they outscore them 42-3 the rest of the game?
Yeah,
Let me figure out the final score. Keith, you're a big LSU fan.
Well, no, I would just say, I mean, it's one game. I mean,
45-20. They outscored them 42-3.
Yeah, but he had 3 seasons in Florida Atlantic to kind of rehabilitate his career, and he had 2 10-win seasons there. And the talent level you're going to have at those programs is going to be comparable to everybody else in your conference, right? Ole Miss 5-5 in the COVID year 2020, competed in the Outback Bowl, and then last year won 10 games, and he may win 10 games again this year. So I just can't go off of one game. It's week to week in the SEC, man. I mean, they may end up 8-4, and that's not going to change my opinion of him. Okay, he's doing things at Ole Miss, and that are pretty, not remarkable, but pretty damn solid. And it's still not. I mean, that's not a top 6 program in the SEC historically, right? I mean, I guess their last SEC title was 1961, 1962. So 60 years since an SEC title. So
Eli didn't even win.
Yeah, he's made them relevant. They haven't. Correct me if I'm wrong. They have not played in the SEC championship game, have they? I don't. I'd
have to look it up, but yeah,
I don't think they. So, I think he's fine. He's a guy that I would certainly take a look at personally. He knows how to build programs. What you want to see is what he could do at a place if he actually ever was there for more than just a few years. He kind of got a bad rap at USC.
Let me be clear, Stan. My pick would still be Kiffin.
Yeah.
But my guess, gun to head, is Freeze. He just makes much more sense. Keith, I didn't want to interrupt you, big dog. I just want to get that in before I forgot it. Because I hope he wasn't thinking, like, my pick would still be Kiffin. If I were the athletics director, and these were my pool of candidates, Kiffin to me. But who do I think is going to be there, gun to head? I think Hugh Freeze makes a lot more sense. He's a lot cheaper. There are some powerful people that really like him. And to me, he just seems like it's conservative choice. I mean, I'm not going out on a limb here by saying Hugh Freeze. There's a reason we all say that.
Yeah, here's the thing. If you hire again, I always have to say this. If you have an opening, if you hire Freeze, if you hire Kiffin, if you hire Matt Rule, and it doesn't work out, hey, man, you at least went and got a guy. You went and got a guy that it doesn't always work out. But you didn't. It wasn't a real risk. It wasn't you never know how much somebody's going to win. But he'd still probably be my top choice. I mean, certainly in the top 2 or 3, I think. Now, saying that's of the guys we think would be available. You never know who's truly available, because a year ago at this time, would anybody have thought that Brian Kelly would have left Notre Dame for LSU? Now, Lincoln Riley, you could certainly see leaving Oklahoma for USC. I mean, I would have.
That one shocked me. I'll be honest.
I mean, I love Los Angeles, so but you don't know. You don't know, and it turns out Brian Kelly told. There was an interview that he would have listened to Florida if they would have called too. So he was actually looking to maybe leave. So maybe there's somebody else out there like that. I don't know.
James Franklin.
I want to.
Maybe James Franklin, even though he's got all those ties to that part of the country, says, you know what? It's time to go back to the SEC. I'm limited at Penn State. Look what I did at Vanderbilt. Look what I've done at Penn State. Maybe at a school with the resources like Auburn. So let's put some feelers out. You just don't know.
Never know.
You don't know. And what if the what's the guy's name? The head coach at with the Arizona Cardinals. The head coach of the Arizona Cardinals.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh, yeah. Texas Tech.
They're just okay this year. And there's talk that he's on the hot seat. And he's a young guy. He's had success at the college. I'm just throwing this out there.
Sure.
What if he says, you know what? Do you not take his calls if you're Auburn?
Oh,
I
sure.
mean, we don't know what the unknown variables are out there.
Who was this quarterback? Kid, this is kind of going with your question here. We're throwing some coaches' names out there that we haven't talked about. No one has really. But who was the quarterback? Graham Harrell.
Yeah, Graham Harrell for Michael Leach at Texas Tech.
Oh, who was the Cliff Kingsbury's? Wasn't he at Texas Tech?
He was
before going to Arizona.
He was Patrick Mahomes, was he not?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So would that be a good recruiting tool?
Sure.
I'm just saying. I mean, don't limit yourself. Sometimes, again, does he have SEC ties? No, but he's an NFL head coach. That's the highest level. And he coached Mahomes, and I'm just saying, and he now coaches Kyler Murray. So I'm not even. First of all, I'm not even saying he'd be interested, but I'm just saying. My point is, you never really know who's out there. You know,
I want to say too, just back on Lane Kiffin, because I didn't want. He still, would be my top choice too, probably. For me personally, him and Freeze are up there at the top. But I think and I know how fans think, because I've been a football fan my entire life, so you get a little over emotional about things, and you see the way that the last 2 weeks his defense he let Auburn crawl back into a game, and most people that are Auburn fans view Auburn's offense as not having a pulse. So then you let LSU get back in the game, which if you're not watching them, they're really improving, especially Jaden Daniels. So those are two things that fans are sort of held up on, and they go, well, we don't want to be in that situation where we don't have a defense. But I just don't know if it would be I'm not. That's not my holdup. I think it would maybe be different if he were at Auburn with the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I don't want to take a shot at Ole Miss, but again, like I said, they haven't won an SEC title in forever. It's a different situation. You're closer to the recruits at Auburn, quite frankly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going to get more guys from Florida. You've got better resources. You've got more, probably going to have a more significant NIL. You're going to have a better football facility. By the way, Ole Miss's football facility is really nice. I love going to Oxford. I've covered a bunch of camps there. In fact, you know whose camps I would cover there? Hugh Freeze. Okay, and now so I switched to Hugh Freeze. And I will tell you one thing he would bring to the table.
1963 SEC title.
In 1963. So they haven't won a title since before a single SEC team had a black player.
That's true.
Okay. Wow. And then that's not to diminish what those guys did. You just compete against who you line up against, right? And they have some national championships claimed, and they were a great program.
All before 63.
Under Johnny Vaught, right? And so, yeah, they're a great program. But it's been a while. But Hugh Freeze, one thing he is, I don't want to say P.T. Barnum's not what I'm looking for here. He's not a salesman. He's a great speaker. He's like a Pied Piper in a sense. I think he would be a guy, and this is where I would think he would probably have a little bit of an edge over Lane. I think Hugh likes public settings. I think he likes public speaking. I think he likes to have a microphone. I think he'd have fun traveling around the state and meeting people and raising money and getting people excited. Lane Kiffin gets you excited because he's Lane Kiffin.
All right.
I go back to the –
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead, Keith. Well,
I interviewed Lane when he was he had just been named offensive coordinator of Southern Cal. And I was writing about him because I worked at the old St. Petersburg Times, which is now the Tampa Bay Times. And his dad at the time was Monty Kiffin, or is Monty Kiffin, but it was the defensive coordinator of the Bucks. So I said, well, hey, this is a good story. This guy started he's been around the Bucks program. Now he's the new OC at Southern Cal. And I called Lane and got a hold of him. And he's actually sort of a quiet talker. He's not super brash. Every once in a while he says something that gets your attention, but usually he's kind of, I don't think he is what people think he is in that regard. But
he's not Twitter Lane.
No, I kind of like the guy, to be honest. I went to high school with his ex-wife, the Layla Kiffin, who was very popular on social media. Obviously.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, her dad was here's a tie to Auburn. So here you go, Lane Kiffin, ex-wife. Well, here's Lane Kiffin, ex-wife, Layla Reeves Kiffin, daughter of John Reeves, former Florida quarterback. Okay, now where's the link to Auburn? You guys don't know this?
John Reeves,
Florida quarterback, set the all-time NCAA record for interceptions thrown in a game, 9 against Auburn University. So
I can't believe I didn't know that.
That's 4 degrees of Kevin Bacon and Auburn football, basically.
Dude, 9 interceptions? And they left him. He threw 8, and the guy was like, let's send him back out there.
Come on. I think if we just run the route a little bit more.
Yeah, right.
That's like the
it's not your fault, John.
Well, that
1994 LSU game.
Well, yeah. Well, so John
interceptions.
had the battles against – well, they weren't battles. Auburn kicked the crap out of him. He was the quarterback at UF the same time Pat was the quarterback at Auburn.
71 or 2?
70, 71, I believe, I want to say.
There you go.
Hey, you're right about Lane, by the way. When you talk to him, it doesn't feel like you're talking to a celebrity whatsoever.
Yeah.
Well, look at his sideline interviews, his post-game interviews. They're very just, it was,
Does he like being Lane
Grab
Kiffin?
your popcorn.
Does he like being Lane Kiffin? I'm sure he does, yes. Now, here's another connection. His brother, Chris Kiffin, was Hugh Freeze's defensive line coach at Ole Miss. And signed Robert Kimdichie, who at the time was the number one recruit in the country. So there's a lot of – it's interesting if it would come down to those two guys, right? I mean, again, I feel like the body's not even cold in Auburn, and we're talking about all these –
But, we understand.
Yeah.
We understand the fans.
All the coaches I know on this Auburn stuff, I don't know all of them. I like the guys. I got to tell you, I met Christian Robinson when he was working at another school, and the guy's about as nice as they get. He may be the nicest coach. I always thought Tim Horton was number one. Well, Tim, you got some competition.
Yeah.
It might be him. I mean, Cadillac is Cadillac. He's
I'd throw Rock Bellantoni in there as well.
I would.
Yeah.
They're very genuine folks.
But Hugh Freeze, I think, is a guy that you, based on his personality, I will tell you, I covered his camps a bunch of times, maybe 3 or 4 of his camps. And I will tell you that he loves recruiting guys. He loves to play that game. He likes getting attention that way. He had a couple guys commit at a camp I covered, and I think Barton Simmons, we were all at 24/7. Barton Simmons, who's now the GM with Vanderbilt University, we were at that camp, and we were the only 2 reporters left there. And they called us to Hugh's office, and he had 2 guys commit, and he basically let me break the commitments right from his office. I don't know if you're supposed to do that, whatever. But whatever, man. I mean, it was great promotion for his program. The kids were happy. He was happy.
So he's a recruiting reporter friendly.
I think so.
Well, I go back to the word I've used a couple times on this live show already. It's politics. I think he just understands politics and appreciates it, and that's what recruiting is, by the way, is politics.
But Cole, when you say somebody understands politics, I think what you really mean is, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but what a person means when they say that is they understand people.
Yeah, relationship.
Sure.
People.
Relationship.
Politics is people.
Absolutely.
Bob Cannon wants to know, Art Briles completely a no-go zone?
I don't think anybody's going to touch him. I mean, gosh, somebody tried to hire him. Who was it? It was one of the –
Dude, it is not worth the risk. No.
Somebody tried to hire him in the last year.
Grambling State.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
As an OC, Jackson is the head coach at Grambling and tried to hire Art Briles, and it lasted 2 weeks, and they ended up letting him go because of the backlash.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into what's fair and what's not fair, what he did or didn't do it. But that's above my pay grade. That's you know what I mean? We don't know all the details. All I know is it's like the guy's radioactive. You know what I mean?
Really.
Yes, Bob Cannon. Art Briles is completely a no-go zone.
If Roberts wanted to hire a guy like that, he'd have to wear a hazmat suit. You know what I mean?
And I don't get that vibe from Hugh Freeze. I mean, if Liberty's going to hire him, I mean, that's just not the vibe I get from that.
Liberty a Baptist school?
Well, it's run by the president has been Falwell. I don't want to get into politics.
Oh, God. Is it Jerry Falwell?
Well, I'm not even saying that that it's like a Christian university, just that a university in general hired him.
University in general, yeah. Yep.
Because they won't touch Rob.
For them, it was let's give a guy a redemption story, right?
Right.
Let's forgive somebody's sins or whatever. I mean, there's different ways of looking at it. All I know is the guy's a really good football coach. He's a really good recruiter. He's a good play caller. He's good around people. Ole Miss got in trouble while he was there. It happens. It happens.
I tell you what, though, you think about Hugh Freeze with a damn good NIL.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. That's the part where I'm like, I think he would really thrive with that.
Well, he likes people. And here's another thing. If there has been a criticism, and I'm not saying it's fair or not fair, but all of us have heard from high school coaches that maybe Brian Harsin isn't a guy that loves being around high school coaches. That's the nicest way I can put this, right? But Hugh Freeze, Charles Kelly, another guy that people have mentioned. Would he be a strong candidate? But Hugh Freeze was a high school coach. Those are his people at the end of the day. Now he's making millions of dollars a year, and he's probably traded in the pickup truck for the $150,000 Mercedes. But at his core, he's a high school coach, right? He's a high school coach that made it big. Guess who loves those guys? Other high school coaches. And that, quite frankly, is why Art Briles was so popular. Listen,
Sandra Bullock.
Well, that's right. Art Briles, for all the radioactivity around him, he's still revered by Texas high school coaches, and a lot of people view him as being the guy that really took that next step and allowed other high school coaches to get their chances, right? Cole, I mean, Jeff Taylor, think about all the high school coaches, Gus, a lot of those guys, Chad Morris, a lot of those guys credit Art Browse for
Jeff Traylor.
There, you know what I mean?
Chip Lindsey.
That's a good name for names that have been mentioned to that question earlier, Jeff Traylor.
Yeah.
I think you've said that before, too.
What about your boy at Georgia Southern?
Clay Helton, former Auburn guy. I mean, he played at Auburn for a short minute there. That's why it seems like, I don't know, if you get to that point.
Why not throw his name out there, man?
Yeah.
You know what's funny is if Muschamp never leaves Auburn and never becomes a head coach again and is just a DC out there doing really well, he's Auburn's next head coach. I firmly believe that. But
I have a question to y'all. To both of y'all as we're kind of closing this down here. Obviously, Will Muschamp has gone to 2 SEC programs, Florida and South Carolina, and did he get fired by both of them?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. How much do you take that into account, number one? Number two, does the new world of NIL, the transfer portal, does that give somebody like him another chance, in your opinion?
Recruiting's never been Will's problem. Will's been a fantastic recruiter.
Well,
now, listen, I would have to recuse myself because personally, I love this guy.
Yeah.
I would want him as Auburn's head coach, not because I think he's a great coach, because he would be very beneficial for me.
Yeah, I think he's a fantastic guy. We actually lived in the same town as as children at the same time, and we have mutual friends. And I think he's a fantastic guy. Works hard, recruits his ass off, would put everything into the job. But here's the thing: at a certain point, you have to be whoever you hire. You got to turn around and sell it to the fan base. And
I just don't understand why he wasn't a good coach, a good head coach.
I mean, look, at South Carolina, I can tell you why. He wanted that job because you never know if you're going to be a head coach again. It was a head coaching job in the SEC, but it's a tough place to win, man. I mean, Spurrier had those 3 10-win seasons in a row, I think, maybe 11 wins. But look who they got. Jadeveon Clowney came through the state at that time.
Yeah.
Marcus Lattimore. And don't forget, when Spurrier got there, Clemson was down.
Yeah.
Will got there and Clemson was up. Okay. And Georgia was on the rise. Bad timing. He just at Florida, I think it was a learning experience. He had the 1-11-win season. One of the mistakes was hiring Charlie Weiss to be his first OC, a guy that wasn't a recruiter. But at South Carolina, it was just the timing, man. You know what I mean? I know Beamer's doing some things, but I just feel bad because if Will stays at Auburn a couple years and then goes to become the DC at Georgia or whatever, which is potentially what would have happened, he's still, I think he's 49 or 50 years old, and he would have had that experience, and you know what I mean? I don't know. It's sometimes it just doesn't work out. From that whole Georgia coaching tree, all those guys that were that either played for Ray Goff, all the guys that played for Ray Goff, Bobo, Muschamp, Kirby. Other guys too. Kirby's the guy everybody's going to remember. And Will's pretty damn good coach, just didn't work out as a head coach.
So my question is too, and y'all kind of answered this, but with everything that is part of college football now, is he worth taking another shot on for that reason?
You couldn't sell it to the fan base. I think that's the problem. You could sell it to me.
Do you think you could sell Will Muschamp better than you could sell a guy like Jeff Grimes, because Muschamp has been at Auburn and he's well liked by Auburn fans because of how he did the defense?
That's a hard one, man. I mean,
playing devil's advocate, of course.
I hear you, Cole. Listen, you wouldn't have to sell me much on him. If they hired Will Muschamp, I'd be okay with it, and not for personal reasons. I really would. I really think he is I don't understand what the difference between I would like somebody to point out to me how you can be such a good football coach and fail miserably at 2 places as the head coach. Like, what is he not doing, or what is he doing?
Well,
what did he do? What didn't he do?
Well, Jeffrey,
what does it take?
Yeah, well,
it's not recruiting.
Yeah. Well, it's South Carolina, obviously, like we just said. It was
Florida.
But at Florida, remember who he replaced? Urban Meyer. And Urban left because his last season he went 8-5. There was a talent drop-off, okay? Cam Newton transferred out after getting in some trouble there. John Brantley didn't really work out. Well, no, he didn't. I'm not knocking the kid, but he got in trouble.
Hey, I hear you.
I mean, it is what it is. Who cares, right? I mean, but would you rather have Cam Newton or John Brantley to be your quarterback? And the talent had started to drop off. But not only that, Urban had a number 1 ranked class in 2010, I want to say. And you know what happened? So I'm getting a call.
Half of them went to jail.
I don't want to say the lunatics started running the asylum, but the culture started changing. They're kind of like what happened in Tallahassee at the end of Jimbo's. So Will had to deal with that too. But what are you supposed to do? Say no when they call and offer you a job and you've never been a head coach?
So you think he was in a no-win situation there?
Not a no-win situation, but Ron Zook had to follow Steve Spurrier. Somebody has to follow Pat Dye. It's not easy, right? Somebody has to, somebody had to follow Shug, and look what happened to him, right? And so but you can't just sit there and be, you can be picky. I mean, it's one thing if Louisiana Monroe calls and offers you a job, you can turn that one down. But when an SEC school calls and offers you a job, you can't turn it down. You can't, especially after he'd been fired at Florida. He didn't know if he was ever going to get another head coaching opportunity again at a Power 5 school. South Carolina called. Remember why they called? They were trying to hire Kirby, and Georgia fired Ripton and got out in front of him. Remember all that? Right? Wasn't that what happened?
It was a race to him, wasn't it?
Basically. And South Carolina kind of had to save face. Well, you go out and get a guy that coached at Florida and had great success as a DC at Auburn on a couple of occasions and had success at Texas where he would have been the head coach in waiting. He could have stayed at Texas, but he didn't know. Just because you're the head coach in waiting doesn't mean that's going to work out, by the way.
It never does.
Head coach could get fired, right? And then it doesn't matter that you're the head coach in waiting, or the program could just drop off so much that people say, well, wait a second. The offense is still kicking ass. Defense ain't what it used to be. Maybe we don't need this guy to be the head coach in waiting. So sometimes you're a product of the circumstance. Now, could he have made better hires? Probably. But I will tell you this. If you hired Will Muschamp as your head coach, you might have Mike Bobo Part 2 as OC at Auburn, too. They are thick as thieves, I think, those guys. Another good guy, too.
Yep. Good stuff, folks. Good stuff. Good on a bye week. Great show for a bye week. Great show, period. Yep. We appreciate everybody. All the questions. AUJHW from Birmingham giving us a call. T. Roy from Spanish Fort giving us a call. We appreciate you guys. All the questions and comments we had coming through the chat. Kelsey Gardner, DT97, Jordan Valiant, Blake Pipkin, Jay Bradford, Pocket Watch, Byron, Matt, Stan from Cleveland, Kenneth, and Bob. Man, we appreciate everybody. Sure do. We're going to have a busy week at Auburn Live on 3. If you're not a member of that site, you're absolutely great time to do it, to come join us. Auburn Live on 3, 50% off, free week. Going to have a lot of stuff coming out this week. Auburn plays host to Arkansas Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Keith and I will be back Monday morning with Inside the 20. We will be back again on Wednesday. We'll have a modcast. We'll have a recruiting show. Auburn's going to have some recruits coming in this weekend for the Arkansas game. And a lot going on. Will Auburn be able to get an AD named before kickoff? If not, how much longer will it be? And so hopefully some finality, some conclusions to some of the things still left up in the air. But we'll try to do our best to keep it all at the tip of our tongue on Auburn Live on 3. Thanks again, everybody, for listening, man. Y'all stay tuned. If you're not a member of, if you haven't subscribed to Auburn Live on 3 YouTube page, you're on it right now. Click that subscribe button. Maybe even like it. I don't know what it does, but we do. It does help us somehow, man. And then hit that notification so you won't miss any show. Thanks again, everybody. We appreciate everybody. For Pink, for Jhead over there with the baby, for Keith, for Zach in the back, I'm Jeffrey Lee. Y'all stay out of the left lane. See ya.